Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to yet another edition of Razorpay's Unlock Growth webinar series, where we get industry leaders to come and talk about how SMEs and startups can actually navigate the post pandemic new world order, how they can navigate the digital jigsaw puzzle and the payments landscape. We have for you today a very interesting session, and I am personally very excited to actually be a part of this. We have a session on how SMEs and startups can actually unlock growth from global markets. How can you take your business global? And we have for you two marquee speakers, two fantastic public speakers, very renowned public figures. We have for you Harshil, who's the co-founder and CEO of Razorpay, one of India's most successful entrepreneurs. Welcome, Harshil, and thank you for taking time. We also have for you Anupam, who heads the India, APAC, and the MENA businesses for PayPal, and a fantastic public speaker. I can tell you that from my own personal experiences. Welcome, Anupam. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me, Veda.
Yeah.
Thanks, Veda.
Yep. Very excited. Before we dive into the topic at hand, and obviously the backdrop to this entire conversation is the recent partnership, the strategic partnership that both of our brands have struck, right? Wherein Razorpay and PayPal are coming together in order to enable Indian startups and SME businesses to go global. But before we dive into that, I want to address the elephant in the room, or the T-Rex in the room, so to speak, which is the pandemic itself. And the kind of effect that it's had on Indian businesses, the startup and the SME landscape, particularly on the point of going global. Do you think it's made things more difficult for SMEs to go global, or do you think the world has become a smaller place now because of the pandemic, and it's made it easier for Indian businesses now to take that global leap? I'm going to start with you first, Anupam, and get your perspectives.
Yeah, Veda, thank you so much for having me on this webinar. And Harshil, great partnership. Looking forward to doing wonderful things with Razorpay. In terms of the pandemic itself, Veda, I think it's both a blessing and a boon. And I say that because it's clear that everybody around the world is suffering, and I would argue till 2021 and maybe we'll continue to live in this craziness we call COVID-19, or living with it. My sense is that, at least, aside from all of the challenges we're all facing, working from home, not having enough working capital, not having, customers really come up to your stores, it's also changed the mind shift of the consumers. Around the world, people are now looking to not physically go to a store, but buy online. And we've seen this as being amazing tailwinds for businesses such as Razorpay and PayPal. We see actually acceleration of near 3 to 5 years around the world, not just limited to India, but around the world. People are reticent to touch cash because of germs. People are reticent to go out to stores because of logistical issues and or other issues. Most cities are in lockdown. So what do? So you have to buy online. And if you are buying online, the question that goes through is, what's stopping you from buying from somebody who's in your neighborhood versus somebody who's sitting 15,000 miles away from you? There is no delta. There is no difference, right? You can buy from anywhere you want, whatever you want. India has about 75 million MSMEs, and it's one of the largest freelancer markets in the world. And we've seen really an explosion of these MSMEs going out and selling their goods and services around the world. I will go deeper into it. Is my sense. I will stop here and say that I think it is a blessing and a boon, and the world has become a village. There is nothing stopping you, from shopping or buying or selling anywhere in the world, wherever you may be.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anupam. Very interesting. Harshil, your views? Do you think it's a double-sided coin, or do you think the pandemic has had more of a one-sided impact?
No, see, there's no doubt that pandemic has a negative impact on everyone. But I think it is for businesses. I think you can't do much about the pandemic. It is a global event. It has happened to everyone. What you can do is find opportunities for growth. And I resonate with what Anupam said, that hey, we are in a different world order right now, and if this will continue for a while, what SMEs and businesses can do is to try to make the most of it, right? So One thing that's happened because of the pandemic is most businesses are forced to go digital, right? So businesses who are accepting cash, who are accepting physical payments, physical transactions are all accepting it digitally. And in digital world, there are no borders, right? There is no state, there is no city, there is no country. You can serve the same customer through the same platform, whether it exists 50 meters from you or 5,000 kilometers from you.
Yeah.
And that is the advantage and that is the opportunity that businesses have in this world, that if you're transitioning digital because of COVID, why not make the most of it and make your business available globally? Why restrict yourself by a geography, by a state, by a city, or even by a country, and why not make your business available for everyone? And eh, I think that is the only silver lining, I would say, of the pandemic, that as businesses are going digital, they can significantly expand their borders, they can significantly expand their market and reach customers that could never reach in the previous in the earlier ways of doing business. So while your overall business in a particular geography might be reduced, by expanding those geography, you can significantly expand the market that you are able to cater to, which could lead to different form of growth or different kind of growth that businesses have never seen before. And I think that is the intention of our partnership with PayPal as well. That hey, can both of us work together to enable these new digital first businesses who are completely digital from day one, allow them to not serve just the local market or the geographical market, but serve the global market. Yeah. I think for internet businesses, there are no boundaries, and we are all serving the global markets.
Very interesting. That brings me to a very interesting anecdote that I recall you mentioning, Harshil, earlier, wherein you said that Razorpay essentially is like an index fund that sits on top of the entire startup and the SME ecosystem in the country. And we have this ringside perspective to actually what's happening across the ecosystem. And we've had the opportunity to have a lot of very interesting conversations. And personally, I've spoken to quite a few very interesting stories of small businesses which have taken their dhanda actually global. I've spoken to this fantastic online instructor who conducts online painting classes to students all across the world. And I've personally been a student myself. I don't paint too good, but I've attended quite a few of his classes. He started his business in India. He started off with a domestic focus. Then he took his business global. There are stories of so many SaaS companies which are based in tier 2, tier 3 entrepreneurial demographic hotspots in the country: Coimbatore, Chandigarh, Lucknow, Indore, Ahmedabad, who essentially only have international clients. They only have international. They don't have any domestic clients. There are quite a few service providers as well from these cities who have only international clients. There are so many e-commerce companies that sell to the diaspora living abroad. So which actually segues us to the first poll question of the day. If I can request the team to actually put up the poll question, then I'm going to come to both of you to actually get your perspectives. The question to the audience today, and we have more than 1,000 people attending us, is at what point did you, in your respective business life cycle, consider taking your dhanda or your business global? Was it right at the beginning? Was it after you acquired initial set of early adopters in your domestic market after you were able to establish PMF? Or was it because of the pandemic? Or you've never been thinking about taking it global? I'd love to hear your perspective. So if I can request the audience to please vote, we'll give it a few seconds and then we'll get the answers. If I can request the team to put up the answers. Yep. That's very interesting. So a lot of people, it's actually a split verdict, if I may say so. Very similar to some of the examples, the anecdotal examples that I spoke about, wherein there are some businesses who think about going global right at the beginning. There are some who first want to establish their foothold in the domestic market before going global. And I'm going to come to each of you now. I'm going to start with you first, Harshil, this time. What are your views on this? Is there a certain established playbook for going global?
I think I would reiterate what I said earlier, right? Internet is a global marketplace by default, right? And if you are limiting yourself by geography or by location, then you are artificially constraining the market that is available to you. I think in the older world order, when people used to open up shops and only people in a physical location could reach out to you, then we had logistics companies that allowed you to reach a larger location through, let's say, companies like e-commerce, where you could serve the entire nation and take orders from everywhere and deliver to them. But I think now we have the logistics ecosystem as well as the internet and payments ecosystem has matured enough that you can go global on day one. So I don't think we are at a situation right now where a business needs to start in a small market, prove themselves, and then go global. But I think the time today is for a business to go global from day one. So if you or your business isn't serving the global markets, I think you're missing out on a lot of opportunity, because like you can either address the GDP of India, or you can address the GDP of the world. And why not address the GDP of the world if you can do it? So my opinion would be go global from day one.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I'm going to paraphrase what you just said and put some words in your mouth. Don't beat me up for this. What you're essentially saying is if Razorpay had started today and not in 2014, 2015, you might have gone global. possibly on day zero itself. And Razorpay has been focused in the India market for some time, but I'm just taking the liberty of putting words in your mouth. But and a quick call out to all of the people who've been kind enough to join us today. We have some fantastic goodies which are available, and we have some very interesting contests running on social media as well. So if you could capture all of the great quotes that all of our speakers today are saying, quotable quotes, tweetable tweets, take screenshots from the webinar and put it up on Twitter, tag both of the brands, tag Razorpay and PayPal, and use the hashtag unlock growth. You stand a chance to win some fantastic goodies. So stay tuned on that. Feel free to take screenshots, capture whatever it is are your primary takeaways from the webinar, put it up on social media. Would love to hear from you. Anupam, I'm going to go to you next. Is there a certain established mantra for success? Should we start domestic, go global, or do we need to go global right up front?
It depends. It depends on your business, right? And if you are if you are catering to an audience that is very niche or geographical spread, for example, you are let's say Swiggy, right, selling food, and you need to build your logistics around food. It has to be city by city. It has to be done in a different manner. But as Harshil said, the world has become a global arena for us all to play in. So especially for small businesses, right, who are not going to go out there and establish their own logistics network, et cetera, et cetera. I think starting with the globe in mind, think big, start small, maybe, right, is what I would say. Think global, act local. That also sort of because you got to start somewhere. And the way I look at life is, just before I say what I was about to say, you talked about your art teacher, right? Who is basically a freelancer, probably teaching you over YouTube or Zoom, what have you, how to do this. We've seen really an explosion of this space. Edutech is actually what we call it, right? This entire educational space. Byju's and some of the other ones are coming at the forefront, but there are literally millions of people. I was talking to one of our customers. She's learning Bharatnatyam, sitting in the US, from somebody in India, right? I mean, you have people who are selling. I was in Dharavi before February this thing hit, and I went to a merchant there who was, a person who was selling leather jackets, and his entire customer base was overseas. Now, the question that people came up, and so there's some businesses, like you said, who are set up to sell globally. Now, this person, I asked him, why are you doing what you're doing? And the answer was, look, I can make more money from overseas than I can. I'm selling in dollars versus I'm selling in rupees. So I would rather sell in dollars if I can than sell in rupees. So my view is that depends on your business model. What are you trying to go after? Clearly think global, but you have to start, right? I mean, that's the intent of it. And if there are things like fashion or cosmetics or things of that nature, their NRI population around the world is huge. So you don't have to just sell your lehengas that you're making to the local, during wedding season in Bangalore, but you can sell it anywhere in the world. So why limit yourself from that perspective? And then there is another interesting thing that we've seen also through the pandemic. Not only on the merchant side, we're seeing people wanting to do things more global. We're also seeing the kind of people who are coming to the e-commerce side are also different. E-commerce was traditionally known to be as a space occupied by young people like yourself and Harshil. I'm a little old. But we're seeing a new generation.
Yeah, thanks for calling me young. Yeah.
So what we're seeing is a new generation of people who are coming online, right? And we're calling this generation the silver tech. This is the silver tech generation, people who are above 50, who are coming and buying for the first time using e-commerce. They typically were either afraid or didn't understand, and their kids were teaching them, hey, dad, this is how you use iPad, or your daughter telling you how to actually put your credit card online, etc., etc. And they were quite scared to do those things. But we're seeing an entire new generation of these people coming online, and that also opens a very interesting verticals to cater to this generation, which traditionally people would not have thought about. So I'm seeing a change not just in the consumer on the merchant side, but also on the consumer side, driven predominantly by a pandemic around the world.
It's very interesting, Anam. I'm just going to build on top of what you just said with a couple of personal anecdotes. The first is I attended a Zoom wedding recently where the bride and bridegroom were in the United States and the service provider or the freelancer, which is the priest, was actually dialing in from Zoom from India. And he was actually sharing his screen and taking people in through all of the mantras and the shlokas which need to be narrated, etc. This was during the height of the pandemic last year. Just gives you a sense of how our ways of living have fundamentally been altered because of the pandemic, and it has essentially blurred geographical boundaries. You've got a priest sitting in India, in Hyderabad, conducting a ceremony for a couple which is based in the United States. So it's pretty interesting. And the other point, the point that you spoke about Indian ethnic wear, lehengas being sold online. I had the opportunity to be a part of a startup very early in my career, which essentially was selling Indian ethnic wear to the diaspora living abroad. And the key USP there was, unlike some of the other players, their USP was the fact that they would customize your product according to your body measurements. And obviously, you don't have access to high quality tailoring options if you're living in Detroit or in Texas or in Toronto or in London. Whereas in India, of course, you have a tailor in almost every single street. That was the fundamental USP. And obviously, their average selling prices were extremely large. It made real money, unlike a lot of e-com unicorns in the country, and which is, again, a very interesting story, just building on top of what you just said. Moving on, I'm just going to talk about another very interesting aspect that I think is important for us to acknowledge, which is a sense of intimidation and coupled with a sense of curiosity that a lot of Indian businesses have when it comes to this entire prospect of going global, which actually segues me to the next poll question. If I can request the team to please put it up. A lot of businesses still feel there is a certain inertia barrier when it comes to going abroad. They have like 10,000 unanswered questions in their mind. And which is what the second poll question is actually talking about. I hope it's not actually keeping you up at night. This is meant to be metaphorical. But what about going global that, is it that actually keeps you up at night? Is it about the payment stack? We hope it's not about payments. Is it about acquiring customers? Is it about the regulatory and the compliance, quote unquote, nightmare that you're scared about? Or is it more about logistics and fulfillment? We would love to hear from the audience. A call out once again to the audience to please tweet using the hashtag #UnlockGrowth, tagging both of us. Take screenshots, take all of the quotable quotes that Harshil, all the dollops of wisdom that Harshil and Anupam are actually dropping, and put it up on Twitter. Very interesting goodies coming your way. If I can request the team to please put up the answers. It's about acquiring customers and, of course, the regulatory and the compliance jigsaw puzzle, which is fairly intimidating for a lot of businesses. I'm going to start with you first, Anupam, to give your point of view on some of the inertia barriers that are actually coming in the way of Indian businesses looking to take wing and looking to go global. Your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think your survey was quite on point, to be honest with you. I don't want to plug PayPal here shamelessly, but the discoverability, I think, is the key issue that people highlighted. How do I get discovered? How do I find the customers? That is one of many problems. Some of them you did not highlight over there. My view is that people. It is as difficult to find a consumer in India as it is to find a consumer in any part of the world, right? If you know your product well, if you know your vertical well, I think then the next part of it becomes a little easier. I'll give you another segment of merchants that is doing phenomenally well in this day and age, which is called drop shippers. Now, what drop shippers are, these are people, small businesses like you and me. Their entire business model is buying things from China, never taking delivery of the goods themselves, but shipping it from China to end customers. So they're drop shipping in essence. And their entire business model revolves around discoverability, right? They will put Facebook advertisements, they will put Google advertisements, AdWords, and so on and so forth, but they'll find a niche for themselves that they are very good at. And all the entire business model is around providing that bespoke services. How do I create a catalog of goods that is for my audience very important, right? Very, very, very sort of that resonates with my audience. Now, the challenge is if you want to do everything and you want to sell to everybody in the world, and then you want to, then discoverability becomes a big issue. But if you know what you're selling and if you know who you're selling it to, then I would argue with the way the world is with the social media, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it is internet searches, you can tailor all of this to an audience that may be one of 500 people in a particular country or particular city, if you will. And then if you then partner with the likes of a PayPal, so what is two things that happen in person's mind, right? Both on the customer side and the merchant side. The problem that people find is, okay, I'll find a customer, but will the customer actually buy from me or not? Now, why will the customer buy from you if they don't know you, right? There is no trust. You're sitting on the internet, they've never met you. It is not like walking into a store and buying a pair of jeans, trying the pair of jeans in the store and saying, okay, they fit me very nicely. Now let me go out of the store and here is my money, right? So this is the India at least I've grown up in. But the world is distinct from that now, right? You cannot go to the store. You don't even know where the store is located, right? You don't even know if the person who's showing you the picture of a jean is actually a physical jean or a photograph of the jean, right? So what are you going to end up buying? You don't know. So there is a huge issue, in other words, of trust, right? How do I trust this person that I'm buying from will actually deliver to me in the way, shape, form, or fashion that I need this goods to be, right? Now, not a plug for PayPal, but this is where people like PayPal come into play, right? So we are a two-sided network, not a one-sided network. The merchant is also on a PayPal network, and the consumer is also on the PayPal network. And we provide a 6-month guarantee that if the goods are not as described, meaning it's a picture of a jean rather than a real jean, or you never receive the goods, right? Items not delivered, things of that nature. We provide a 6-month guarantee, or that you buy it and it stops working after a few days. And so that building of trust, I think, is very important. And PayPal is able to do that in 200 countries around the world, meaning if you buy something and pay using PayPal, you will then have an ability to return the goods at no cost to you if they're not as described, right? So the view, in my mind, I'm talking about a lot of different things here, is that yes, customer discoverability is important. I feel if there is a way to get around to it, if you partner with the right players, then that becomes slightly easier, right? Not impossible at that level.
That's very interesting, Anupam. What you're essentially saying is discoverability is important, and it's important for customers to be able to bridge that trust. It's important for businesses to allow customers to actually bridge that trust deficit. And that again, the customers are essentially taking a leap of faith in actually deciding to part with their money with your business, which is somewhere overseas, so to speak. So Harshil would love to double click a little on that and get your perspectives on how businesses can, given that we've addressed the fact that businesses do feel a sense of intimidation, they do feel, and obviously there are aspirations to go global, everybody aspires to go global. How can businesses actually navigate this entire journey of taking their businesses global? How can they take this leap of faith and cross this barrier of inertia?
Yeah, thanks, Vida. And completely resonate with Anupam's thought there. I think, see, acquiring customers is two aspects, right? One is that just getting those customers on your website, like you can run ads on it, you can run marketing initiatives on it, but that's certainly not enough, right? Even when customers come to your site, to drive them toward actually completing a transaction, actually ordering something, that entire process is a lot of steps, right? So first is they come to your website, but who do they trust you? Do they actually are they convinced enough that they're going to make a payment with you? And they look at, okay, you're shipping it from a different country. They get all these questions and doubts in their minds. And so acquiring customers is not just about bringing these customers on your website, but actually driving that to completion. And there are many moving parts to it. First is being able to offer the right kind of instruments for that to make for it to happen. Second is being able to offer them the trust that if things go wrong, they'll have a recourse mechanism. They will be able to reach out to you. They will be able to reach out to, let's say, PayPal or somebody, to be able to get their money back in case the transaction doesn't complete or gets stuck at somewhere. And finally is actually delivering, like will you be actually able to deliver to their aspect? And there are different solutions for all those three aspects, right? And then I think today there are enough and more tools available to help you solve for these. I think from a marketing side, you have all these social media channels which are very widely and deeply adopted that can help you find your niche and be able to target a specific segment of customer that understands and suits you well. The second is that once you bring those customers on board, being able to show them like customer reviews, you can build a social media profile where there are people talking about that they have ordered from you, the ratings, the Play Store ratings and other things, give them a basic set of comfort. And finally, I think it comes to offering them the wide variety of payment experiences. I think we have companies like us and PayPal work together to allow the customer to be able to pay in his own currency. He doesn't worry about, hey, we'll have to pay in INR, we'll have to pay in your rupee. I don't know what the conversion will look like. But be able to say that, okay, this is what you will pay in your own home currency. And finally, I think what Anupam said is really important. That I think customer being able to see a brand that they know and they've heard of, is really important, right? Like they don't know your business in your location. They don't know any other brand, but if they see Razorpay, PayPal, the brands that they have known and heard and transacted with before, I think that really creates a seal of trust that, okay, if something goes wrong, I'll be able to get my money back because I'm using brands that I've worked with before. I think those 3 or 4 things are really important. And I think we have enough and more technology solutions available to solve these things. But, and I think I want to also add on the second highest voted question, which is on regulations and compliance. I think on export of goods, I think the regulations and compliance have become significantly simpler in the last couple of years in India. And the government's incentives are very clearly aligned to the SMEs incentive. Government wants to push export. Government wants to push Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. So I think, and in our dealings with regulators, we have seen that they constantly want to find ways to make it easier for people to export goods and services out of India. So on that front, I think even on regulatory side, you will see that a lot of processes have been streamlined. I think players like us and PayPal have worked together to provide easier ways of being able to get reports and get extracts and things like that, which help them do reporting very well. So I think things are improving significantly on that side. And if this is something that is worrying people, then they should definitely reach out to us or PayPal and folks like us, and we'll happy to handhold them through it, because I think this is great not just for their business but for the entire ecosystem. If the SMEs in India are able to export their products and services across the globe, I think that can drive the economy much faster than what you can imagine. So I think this aligns everyone's incentive, including the regulators.
Yeah, Harshil, I just want to add, I think you made a very good point on the regulation side. The world has come a long way. PayPal has been doing exports from India for the last 10 years. Literally 1/3 of India's retail exports today go through PayPal. There was a time I remember, I mean, it's a small story, where Indian exports are identified as not retail exports. And what does India export? If you really think about it, India exports IT, right? And India exports large iron ore and things of that nature. So retail exports that are going by DHL or FedEx, these small parcels 1-to-1 were never considered even exports. And the merchants had to, if you had a return, invariably, for example, what Veda was talking about, build to order or customized products, sometimes it will fit, sometimes it will not fit. And if they have to do a return, they will have to pay an import duty again, right? As a merchant, you're getting the refund back. So you're losing money because somebody is returning you. Now you have to pay on top of it, import duty. Those days are gone, right? India has come a long, long way. So anybody who's afraid of, I've horror stories after horror stories I've had over the 10 years, and we've lobbied the government over the last 10 years. And there is a very distinct change in the entire export process now, much more automated, much more easier than it has ever been. So yes, it has come a long way.
Yep. Thanks for that, Anupam and Harshil. And I realize that this is a conversation which needs to be focused on payments. We have two of the world's largest payment brands here. But before we get to that, there's just one other question that I would love to pick both of your brains on, which is on any banana skins or anything that businesses should watch out for before going global. Obviously, everybody's in a mad rush to go global. But anything that they need to watch out for before going global, any mistakes to avoid. I'm going to go to you first, Harshil, if you could, from your perspective, give us some thoughts.
I think building trust is very critical in the global marketplace, right? And that is one of the biggest reasons that customers are wary of shopping from global markets into Indian websites. So I think one thing that you have to do, and I think that's what Anupam was saying, that keep a view on global, even if you have to start local, but ensure that you the experience, even if you're serving 100 customers on day one, you ensure that you give them the best experience, because today the marketplace is very interconnected. Even if you serve 2 customers bad, they talk about it on social media, they talk about it on various platforms, and that erodes the trust. And once the trust is eroded, it's hard to catch back. So I think on day one, you have to ensure that if it takes 7 days to you to deliver goods or 15 days to you, you clearly call it out, you transparently communicate, and customers know exactly what they ordered, when they'll get it, how are they supposed to get it. And even if you have to take some margin on it, it's fine. Just ensure that you are meeting customers' expectations. Whatever you are communicating, it is being met in the most transparent manner, because in global marketplaces, that is really important. Once you build the brand around that, okay, this is a trusted brand, it said that it will deliver the goods in 7 days and I got it in 6 days. I think once you start building that experience level with customers, then those customers keep coming back. So establishing the right set of trust on day one is critically important.
Yep, fair enough, Harshil. Anupam, from your perspective, any foundational elements that businesses should first establish before going global? Anything they need to watch out for? Yeah.
I think it is. Harshil said it really well. Is building that trust, and and then you dissect that statement and see how do you build trust, right? Is it your say-do ratio? If you're saying 15 days, make sure you deliver in 15 days. And make sure the say-do ratio is very high. Second, quality of goods, right? You cannot sell junk. You have to make sure you have to build a reputation. It is, sort of one time do or die kind of a situation in my mind. And every situation, every sale is that in my mind. I think a couple of other things one should keep in mind. One is managing the risk, right? There is a risk associated with payments. There's multitudes of risk, and hopefully when we get to payments, we'll talk about it. I used to go around. I started the tech center in India in 2010 for PayPal. That's where I got my start. And I used to go around at that time just asking people, what is going on around the world. And the biggest issue was, people were not willing to do exports from India because there was a lot of fraud, right? And on payments, right? So this, okay, better not, 25-30% fraud, and then I get chargebacks from my bank account, from my creditors, credit card companies and so on and so forth. I cannot afford to do this. So might as well not do the business, right? It's better to stay away. So how do you manage that risk? Who do you choose to work with? How do you work with people? That's another important aspect. Third thing is you cannot do everything yourself, right? Don't try to be a jack of all trades, right? You got to get into partnerships. You got to figure out who are the right payment players, who are the right website developers, who are the right platforms. How do I get my returns exchanges done on time? Who's the right compliance sort of way of getting things done? So making sure you're doing things as a collective, who's managing your logistics? Are you partnering with the likes of a DHL or whoever else, right? So having the right partnerships in place so that you're not fighting it alone, because trust me, doing exports from India, this problem has been solved. It is not a unique problem for a unique MSME sitting in Indore, right? It is not. People are doing it and making tons of money around India. So just look around your network, figure out how others have done it, so figure out your way you do it. So it's through partnerships, it's through managing risks, and it's through building trust. Those are the three key things I would say.
Interesting. Harshil, your views?
I already covered. Yeah.
So I think Anupam, you just preempted my other question on choosing a payments partner. I think we spent a lot of time zooming out. It's time for us to zoom in on payments as a space. What are some of the key criteria that a business actually needs to look at before choosing a payments partner? I think Anupam, you spoke about trust, the need for making sure that you choose a brand that actually is able to allow your international customers to actually take that leap of faith and actually transact with you. Harshil, if you would like to build on that and talk about what are some of the key criteria a business needs to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think some part of Anupam is already covered, but let me break it down. I think first is that providing the options that your customer needs, right? So you can't limit yourself, especially in a global marketplace. Different geographies have different requirements, different local options. Even in India, right? If you talk about India, right, you have credit card, debit card, wallets, UPI, and so on and so forth. And then we expand globally. You have to cover the currency that the customer interacts with, because they understand their currency. You can't give a price of 1,000 rupees, which they will not understand. You have to tell them exactly how much dollars or how much pounds that they'll have to pay in. So having the widest array of currencies and bouquet of currencies and instruments, that is really important. I think, for example, like just plugging in like Razorpay and PayPal together, I think for an Indian business has the widest array of instruments and currencies that you could offer, because it covers the deepest instruments on our side with India. PayPal offers the widest currency network that you have in the world and it's not just about having the right currency, but the right exchange rate and the right prices, so that a customer doesn't feel that he's overpaying for it. So I think that is the first and foremost. The second is having a brand that is trusted and known. The customer shouldn't feel that, hey, they are entering a card number on you and your website. Where will my card number go? Will it get leaked? Having seen brands like PayPal and Razorpay where they have trusted and paid with before, and knowing that, okay, my card number is safe and it's not going to get stolen and things like that. That is really important. The third is, of course, having a recourse mechanism. They know that if something goes wrong, the payment partner will also be able to provide them with the recourse mechanism. And finally, it comes down to the product. I think the product experience that a customer needs to get, it has to be significantly top notch, right? And so you need to have a payment partner who can provide the most top notch experience, with lowest decline rates and stuff. And with both of us and PayPal have worked deeply in this space for the last lot of years. I think, of course, PayPal a lot more than ours. And we have built deep integrations with banks and networks to ensure that the decline rates and other things are handled in the best way. And so you get the most available payment platform that your business can have, and you don't lose business because your payment partner is not able to perform. And those are the 4 things I'd say are really important for you to choose the right payment partner. Anupam, feel free to add if I missed anything.
No, I think you covered it, Harshil. I mean, I would also make a couple of other things, right? Having a trusted brand, but also having, to stand behind that brand, meaning what PayPal physically does is both for the merchants. If, for example, there's an ATO attack or something like that, ATO means somebody commits
Yep.
fraud on the merchant. PayPal will actually refund the merchant themselves from their own pocket, as opposed to saying, "Hey, let's figure it out somewhere else." Right? Same thing on the consumer side. There's an adjudication process that we follow, and then from our own pockets we will either refund the consumer or the merchant. So it's not just the brand piece, but also putting money where your mouth is, so to speak, right? Then beyond that, I think you covered most of the things. One thing I would add is, you know um, how easy is it to onboard, right? If and how easy it is to get underwritten, right?
Yeah.
If you go to a bank or some of these other places, getting yourself as a business underwritten, especially if you're a small business, is not a easy task. Whereas with the likes of Razorpay and the likes of PayPal, it's self onboarding. You just come on board, you just do everything yourself. You don't need to talk to anybody. The APIs to connect are so simple and easy. You don't need to hire a team of developers to do that. It's almost sort of very geared towards the small businesses. Majority of PayPal's business around the world is just small businesses. Then in addition to that, things will go wrong. With any businesses, there's something or the other will always happen. So will the partner stand with you, stand behind you? So excuse me, in terms of refunds, returns, and exchanges? Is there a seamless process that has been built around managing that aspect of things? So I feel, what Razorpay and PayPal partnership really brings to the table is, I was saying this to Veda yesterday, and I think day before yesterday, I don't know, whenever you were telling me, Veda, about this, the Indian sensibility and the global outreach, right? So you get both, the best of both worlds in one partnership. A lot of global companies don't understand the Indian sentimentality, right? Indians are Indians, right? We are proud of ourselves and we do things a certain way. And having an ability to understand that, but also at the same time being present in 200 countries around the world with 350 million consumers, that 1-2 punch, if you will, is a very important thing to have. And I think with the partnership that we have with Razorpay, which we're very, very proud of, I feel people have the best. Maybe I'm tooting our horn too much, Harshal, here, but let me do it. The best combination of Western major and an Indian major coming together.
Yeah, there were at least two
Yeah,
or
no, I agree
three.
with that. And I think
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
think you
Harshil,
just want
please.
to add an example to that. Like unlike a lot of global marketplaces where a lot of business, like for example, if you talk about Valley, almost every business is a tech team, so they can integrate APIs, they can integrate a payment gateway, they can do all of those things. But a lot of MSMEs that are going live today, they don't want to spend that much time and tech bandwidth and all of those resources into doing this. They just want to excel. So, for example, like there's a we provide like a payment link through which customers can go on a dashboard, create a link, and send that link, and they can sell these things on Instagram, on Facebook, on WhatsApp. Just put up that link and accept payments. And now with this partnership, people can just go to our dashboard, click that they want to accept PayPal, enable the PayPal instrument, and they can now start accepting global payments on that same link. I think that kind of partnership, as you rightly said, Anupam, it's unheard of, where you are using a local way of accepting payments through links and other things, and you press a single click, and now you're able to serve the global customer through PayPal. I think that is the advantage that a business gets, and that allows them to go global right on the instrument and the platform that they're already using.
I agree. Yeah.
Yep. Very interesting. And for the audience, I think we heard at least 3 or 4 quotable quotes and tweetable tweets in what Anupam and Harshil just said. I think Anupam had this extremely cool punchline. Indian sensibility is married to global capabilities, which I thought was a really cool one. And a quick call out to the audience to make sure that you capture these aha moments that you've got from the webinar itself and put it up on Twitter. You stand a chance to win some fantastic goodies. We're going to double click on the partnership itself, Harshil and Anupam, what you spoke about, right? It's like a marriage, a coming together or a best of both worlds, wherein we're having Razorpay's robust Indian feature stack married to, of course, PayPal's global engines and global capabilities. I'm just going to spend a minute in taking the audience here through. I'm just going to share my screen in a moment. I'm just going to take the audience through how this actually manifests on the Razorpay dashboard. So for all of you who've got your Razorpay account activated, if you log into your dashboard, go into settings, which is right here at the bottom. All you need to do is go into international. There is a section called international. Under settings in your Razorpay dashboard, and all you need to do is to click on this button which says link account, and you need to log in into your PayPal account. You need to enter your PayPal credentials. It opens up a native iframe, and you stay within the Razorpay dashboard. You would not be redirected. It opens up a native iframe where you can enter your PayPal credentials. After which, your PayPal account and your Razorpay accounts would be linked within 24 hours. After which, you would have the opportunity to start using PayPal in your Razorpay products when you are actually looking to receive payments from your international customers. So how that would manifest is, let's say you're having a payment page after you've linked your Razorpay and PayPal account. Let's say you're looking to sell t-shirts online. When your customers click on pay with Razorpay, you enter your email ID and phone number. Your customers enter their email ID and phone number and click on proceed. They would have the opportunity to pay using PayPal. And of course PayPal of course has a global brand presence. And of course, your international customers now can actually take that leap of faith and invest their hard-earned money in your brand because they see the PayPal logo there. So it certainly is a coming together of a best of both worlds. Razorpay's core Indian capabilities married to PayPal's global capabilities. Very interesting partnership itself. Harshil, Anupam, I don't know if you have anything more to add on top of this before we dive into audience questions. We have a whole host of interesting questions pouring in from Twitter. Before I dive into that, would love to know if you have anything to add over and above what we just went through on the partnership itself.
Yeah, just one thing, Veda. I think what this means is that any product or service that you use from Razorpay, it's not just the payment gateway, but the payment gateway, payment pages, payment links, invoices, any product that people are already using through Razorpay. Once you integrate this, like the PayPal option will be available on all of those. So you don't have to go and separately enable PayPal everywhere, every place where you have integrated Razorpay. Once you do this, the links that are already live, the links that you already sent out, that are already active, the pages that are already working, will start showing the PayPal button. And I think that is the incredible power of this partnership, that merchants just have to go and do that one single click, one single login, and everything else will be taken care of.
Interesting. Diving right into audience questions, we have a whole host of interesting questions coming in. The first question, and I'm going to see if there are any common underlying elements across multiple questions and try and see if I can paraphrase some of the questions. I think we've spoken a lot about how Indian businesses need to go global. This is a flip to that question. It's about how do global markets perceive Indian businesses. Anupam, if you want to take a stab at that, and then I'll go straight over to Harshil.
I think it depends on a couple of things here. So the global audiences, in my view, do not discern based upon the country of origin, at least when it comes to India. There is like it or not, I shouldn't be saying this, but there is, some negative aspects associated with other countries which are neighbors to India, right? Where the product quality may not be conceived to be as good as, traditionally what they're used to around the world. I have not seen that same sort of aspects coming from the Indian side. The largest merchant we have in India is a person who does apparel, just like you said. Another one is they do fashion handbags, right? And they sell, if I tell you the names of the places they sell to, you'd be amazed, right? This is not, your Louis Vuitton and your Chanel. These are, very high quality products that they're selling. So traditionally, you would think Indians companies selling to NRIs overseas, that's a given, right? You don't have a choice. You will buy it from an Indian company buying a lehenga or a kurti or any of that sorts, right? But they have a choice when it comes to services. They have a choice when it comes to other goods, right? And we have seen an explosion, for example, in outside of apparel and edutech in any kind of services vertical, right? Where the quality of the service is more individualistic as opposed to mass marketed, right? So there I feel we've not found people complaining about Indian quality of products. Our returns and exchanges in India are not any worse off than they are in any other country in the world. So that's kind of a number that we look at to see, is there something going on or not. I also must admit, though, that Indian products still tend to be very niche oriented. And if I tell you the people who are making this money, you will blow your mind as to really how, why, what. So typically we say, the cosmetics, auto parts, home goods. This is where the verticals which Indians are doing really well at, right? Edutech we talked about. telemedicine, consulting online with doctors. This is the verticals that really don't have. But there are also some very, very niche verticals where Indians are excelling at. So this one guy out of Amritsar, all he does is he ships out camera parts, right? Camera parts being used for, Leicas, I mean, very expensive, cameras, equipment around that, lighting and so on and so forth. You never even think of it. And these people are making, not just a very nice living, they're industrialists in themselves and nobody even knows who they are, right? So I feel Indian goods are as good, services are as good as there are. We're still very niche focused. We're not considered the manufacturer of the world yet, like China, for example, is. So we have some ways to go. But I feel, as long as you're maintaining the quality, you'll do really well.
Very interesting. And I think you preempted a bunch of other questions as well, which are around what are the opportunities for freelancers in global markets. I think you touched upon that a little bit. I'm going to go to you, Harshil, next. And I think this is a question that you would possibly enjoy answering. There are a bunch of questions coming in on people saying that I don't know anything about coding. I don't have any kind of technical expertise. How do I still navigate this digital payments landscape?
No, I completely understand that. And I think, and that's where India sensibilities are a little different. Like you don't, there are a lot of, in India, it's not just the tech businesses who want to accept digital payments. I think especially in the post-pandemic world, every business wants to accept digital payments. And you don't need to have a CTO or an engineering team to be able to accept digital payments. I think that's what we are focused on at Razorpay. That so if you see the platform, there are enough tools, that what we call no-code tools, available on our platform that allow businesses to start accepting digital payments, start delivering products and services without knowing a single line of code. If you have a website or an app, great, you can use the API to do the tool and integration that accepts every instrument. But if you don't have that, you can go to payment pages, you create a page, list the products and services that you sell, and add some pricing and other parameters. And you can just share that page across on your website, app, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you sell on, and people can start accepting. Similarly, if you want to do one-time payments, you can use a payment links to create a link. If you're doing, for example, a consultancy-based service or things like that, it works well there. And then finally, you have payment button, which works if you're, let's say, if a website which is like a landing page where you display what all you do, you can just copy paste that button and put it there. So it could be like a donate button, or it could be a subscribe button or something like that, and that allows people to accept payments. So there are enough and more tools available on the platform, which allow people to accept money without knowing a single line of code. Yeah, and if you're using a shopping cart platform like WooCommerce, WordPress, QuickBooks, or any of those, you can just go on the, for example, in Shopify, you can go and press two buttons and enable Razorpay and PayPal integration. So I think the technology has come a long way in the last 5 years. And today, if you want to accept digital payments, you want to build a website to even if you want to market it, you don't need to learn coding. You don't need to hire an engineering team. You don't need to hire a CTO to be able to do that. That is the advantage of tools and platforms like Razorpay and PayPal. So people should definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah. Anupam, if you want to build on that, I had a couple of points to make, but I would love to hear your perspectives.
I mean, look, Harshil is the coding genius here, right? So I would not argue with him. I completely agree with him. Whatever he said.
Yeah. There's just this very interesting case. I have this acquaintance from one of my earlier companies who was leading the finance function there. He then quit the corporate world. He started his own company, and he runs an edtech company which is on improving financial literacy and awareness of financial markets for Indians in general. And he's like a stereotypical quintessential finance person who understands numbers, but he doesn't know anything about tech or coding. And he's actually used multiple. He uses 3 of Razorpay's products. He uses payment links, he uses payment pages, and of course, payment gateway. But he started off using payment links and payment pages, which require no kind of tech intervention. You don't need to know anything about technology. I just wanted to build on top of what Harshil just mentioned. And I thought that was particularly interesting and eye-opening for me. Couple of other questions coming in, and I'm going to go to you first, Anupam, because this seems to be a topic that you seem to be particularly passionate about. There is this person who's coming in and who's saying that, and we've seen a lot of tweets coming in around this topic. It's around, I conduct a lot of math and physics classes online, and most of their payments today are through bank transfers. And they're saying, should they consider upgrading their payment stack? And I'm sure you would enjoy answering that, so I leave it all to you.
I mean, so yeah, of course, that's the short answer. I think, look, the bank transfers cost what, $15, $20 per transfer, something to that effect. I think if you use the PayPal and Razorpay combo, that it will be a fraction of that. Especially so of the 17, I think there are about 17 million freelancers in India. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the about the largest freelancer market, but somewhere around there. These are the 9 to 5, not the 9 to 5ers, but the 5 to 9ers, right? The gig economy. And most of them have figured out a way to accept payments. It's not rocket science. You can just go on YouTube and you can figure out how to use Razorpay, PayPal. It's very, very simple. If you can, if you can do bank transfers, you can do this much, 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 much easier. Whether it is through, the payments link that Harshil talked about, there are invoices buttons and so on and so forth that you have. You don't need to even have a website in order to accept payments, right? It's a fallacy. So there are a lot of products that you could use to accept payments. My daughter goes to a singing classes I live in Singapore. So in Singapore, every Wednesday she goes. And these guys, the singing teacher sends me a link every 2 weeks, and I get it, and I click on one button, and it makes the payment. There is her teacher is an opera singer who's from Russia and is like 70 years old. Okay, so if she can do it, I think anybody in the world can do it, and it is very simple. Costs a lot less, is a lot more secure, doesn't require you to go to the bank and so on and so forth, either from you or from a customer perspective, and it all can be done on your phone. Single click and you're done with it. So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add, like when you do just let's say a bank transfer, you're putting a lot of burden on the consumer. He has to copy, paste the bank details. He has to reach out to his bank. He has to do all of those things, and he has to pay the fees from his pocket. I think as a business, if you want to expand your market, I think that's the you need to solve for that and provide. There should be no burden on the consumer. I think that's what business's whole role is, to make it easy for a customer to pay you. And paying to you is not the customer's problem; it's the business's problem to receive that money. And so, by integrating tools like Razorpay, PayPal, you can ease up the life of your customers significantly. They don't have to go anywhere. They just press a button. If I am shopping on a website and they ask me to do a bank transfer, it's like 99% of the chance I'm going to drop off, right? It's too much effort. Unless the product service is like I'm dying for it, there's very less chance you do it. But if you go there and you see a PayPal button, you press one click and the transaction is done. That's the experience you want to keep coming back to. That, okay, I want something, I went there and I shopped and it's done. And you want to capture those impulse purchases. That's the point of building a global marketplace, that you want to capture the customer when he's in that decision making. You don't want to give him 3 days or 5 days of bank transfer to think about whether he made the right decision or not. You want to allow him to make those impulse purchases as and when he comes to pay.
Yep, fair enough. A lot of interesting tweets coming in. There is this particularly interesting tweet of a small scale weaver from Kanchipuram who actually says that he sells silk saris to a global clientele, people living all across the globe. And what they're essentially saying is that they actually moved and started using this Razorpay PayPal integrated suite, and they started seeing their conversions go by at least 35% in the next 1 month after they started using this particular integrated product suite. Before this, they were actually using what you just alluded to, Harshil. They were just using bank transfers. They were getting money wired in before they shifted over to the integrated Razorpay PayPal payment stack, which is again particularly interesting. There is other story of somebody who's actually built an online marketplace which again sells Indian ethnic wear, lehengas, kurtas online. And something that they're mentioning is that they don't see too much of ROI selling in the Indian domestic market, but they're seeing a lot of ROI, and obviously their average selling prices are particularly high, but they're selling to the diaspora living abroad. And that again is slightly interesting. And I see some questions coming around that as well, around how you can navigate this entire aspect of price discovery. How do you zero in on a particular price point that will actually work for your international client base? Obviously, that is again one of the big carrots, right? For businesses which are looking to go global, they can get to make better gross margins. They can, look to sell products which are at a higher, selling point. I'm going to start with you first, Anupam, and then I'll come to you right after that, Harshil, and we might have to wrap up after that. We're almost out of time. But Anupam, some quick thoughts from you on essentially the price point and the price lever that SMEs and startups can play with when selling to global markets.
I mean, it depends on vertical to vertical, country to country. There is no such thing as a global market, right? Selling it to UK versus selling it to, I would argue, a smaller country would be very different in price points. My view is very, very simple, right? Know your customer. I mean, this is a very simple thing in life, right? Whether you're doing e-commerce or you're doing any business, whether you're doing payments, know your customer. If you really truly understand who your customer is, independent of the geography, independent of the currency, independent of the age group, independent of anything else, then you're in a better position. Now, I cannot tell you, charge X or charge Y depending on what you're doing. But the key here is to really understand who you're selling to and why they're buying from you, right? If you understand that one aspect, I think, go home, relax. You won the game, right? Until you come back the next day because somebody else has also figured it out. Now you got to compete with them.
Yep. Almost out of time. So I'm going to come to both of you, just to quickly summarize what we've been through. I'm going to start with you first, Harshil. Two quick mantras for success that SMEs and startups need to keep in mind before they take wing and go global.
Yeah, I think the first thing is what I started the point with, that I think in the post-pandemic world, there are no borders. In the digital world, there are no borders. So don't restrict yourself by the geographical borders or state, city, national borders at all. The internet marketplace is a global marketplace. And if you are drawing borders on that, you are restricting your own scale. So find a way to go global as soon as you can. And second is establish trust. It's to be able to serve that larger global marketplace. It's important to establish trust on day one, serving the customers right and building that word of mouth where people say, yes, this is a trustable brand.
Yep. Still see a bunch of tweets coming in from entrepreneurs running SaaS companies in a lot of entrepreneurial hotspots, a lot of the usual suspects, some of the names that I mentioned. Questions abound on whether this integrated Razorpay, PayPal payment stack is available across Razorpay's suite of payment products. Harshil mentioned this earlier. The answer to that is quite clearly a resounding yes. This is available across Razorpay's suite of payment products. I just wanted to take a moment to address a whole series of tweets coming in on this particular topic alone. I'm coming to you, Anupam, for you to give your closing thoughts on two things that businesses need to be aware of before going global. I think you touched upon it in some shape or form across the last almost an hour or so. But if you could quickly encapsulate two things that need to be top of mind, two things that they need to be cognizant of, aware of before they go global.
I mentioned it many times. Know your customer really well, your customer segment, right? Whether it is the country geography, whether it is, segmentation, whichever way you want to look at it, age, whatever, demographics from, money perspective, et cetera. So really know your customer. There is no substitute for that. It's not a shotgun approach, right? You throw something against the wall and hopefully something will stick, and that's how you'll do your business. Not the best way to start a small business. The best way to start is really do your research, identify who you want to go after, what problem you're trying to solve for, and ensure that problem exists that you're solving, as opposed to something that is imagined by you. Second is, really manage your risk well by choosing the right partnerships, whether it be a payment partner, a logistics partner, an inventory supplier, whatever that may be. Manage that really carefully. They say, measure twice and cut once. So do your homework up front, and then jump in with both feet.
Yeah, that's another fantastic punchline, Anupam. Thank you so much for that. And that brings to an end a fantastic, invigorating conversation. Thank you so much, Harshil and Anupam, for having agreed to spend an hour with us. And a big thank you to the audiences for having decided to spend an hour of their time. I wish everybody very good health, stay safe, which is especially important in the kind of times that we live in. And thank you so much to everybody for having actually taken time off. And looking forward to seeing you again in another edition of the Unlock Growth webinar series from Razorpay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.